Hello everyone and welcome to your explanation for Worksheet 5C. This is for regular college algebra, the semester-long course. And today what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be talking about synthetic division and the remainder theorem. And really that's all we're doing. So we're not adding a lot on this worksheet. It's just a bit more practice and then putting it in different situations. Okay, so let's look at number 2 on this worksheet. So number 2, it says for the following polynomial function, use the remainder theorem and synthetic division to find f of k. So basically we're going to do synthetic division, see what we get, and then we're just going to take k and plug it into the function, and we should get the same thing. That's what the remainder theorem is telling us. Okay, so for this, they just give you k. They don't give it to you in a binomial form. They just give you the number. So that's what goes out front. We take all the coefficients off our polynomial and put them across the top. Drop the 1, multiply by 4, add them up, and then eventually we get a remainder of 793. Check my math on that. Make sure yours is agreeing with it, but that's what I got. Okay, so then for the remainder theorem, we have to do f of k. So basically, I take the 4 and I plug it in for all of the x's on that function. So if you plug those in, and I used a calculator to do all of this because you get some pretty big numbers, this works out to be a 793 as well, and they match, and therefore the remainder theorem works. So that's all you got to do for number 2. Okay, let's look at number 7 real quick. Number 7 says, factor f of x into its linear factors given that k is a 0 of f of x. So basically, they're going to give us one of the zeros, which is the -5 or the k, and then we're just going to factor this until we get all of the factors out. Okay, so we take the -5, we line up all the coefficients, we do all this synthetic division, we get a remainder of 0, which is what we're meant to get because they said it is a 0. So then I take the 8, 10, and -3, and I just write those in function, write basically what it is after I do the division. So it used to be a cubic, now it's going to be a quadratic. So you get 8x squared plus 10x minus 3. And then I'm just going to factor this because it's a quadratic, and we can factor quadratics pretty easily. So over here to the right, I have a diamond problem. I have -24 up top and a 10 on bottom. So the two numbers that make that true are 12 and -2, and that's what I replace the 10x in the middle with. Put some parentheses on there, factor out what I can factor out. You end up getting 4x minus 1 for the first one, and then 2x plus 3 because there's 2 of those. And then the one that people forget constantly is the one that they gave us. So they said -5 is a 0. So we have to make a factor where -5 would be the 0 for it. So if we have x plus 5, that would work, because if you took -5 and put it in for x, it would be -5 plus 5, and that would be a 0. So we have 3 things, and if you were to FOIL these all out, you should get back to where we started, which was the 8x cubed plus 5x squared plus 47x minus 15. So that is all done. And it's very, very important that you realize our answer here is 3 factors. Zeros and factors aren't the same thing. Zeros are what the actual numbers are that make it 0. So like -5, -3/2, 1/4 would be the zeros for this. Zeros and factors are different, so be very, very careful with that. Okay, so let's look at number 8. So number 8 says, figure out a polynomial that has these 3 zeros, and this thing is true, where when I plug in a -1, I get out a -1. So I'm going to start with the zeros because that's the easy part. So -2, well, the factor for that would be x plus 2, because if you take -2, plug it in, you get 0. For 1, it's x minus 1, and then for 0, this is a kind of a tricky one, I guess. It's just x, because if you take 0, put it in there, it becomes 0. So this is my polynomial so far. So then it says if you plug in -1, you have to get out a -1. So I take my answer that I just found, I plug in -1 into it, and I see what I get. So I plug -1 into there, do some work, and you end up with 2. So I get a positive 2. Now over here to the right, I wrote, this is not -1, and it's supposed to be. So what can we multiply 2 by to make it be a -1? Well, how about a -1/2? So all we do is we take a negative half, we stick it in front of our first answer, and it's done. Because if you FOIL all this out, it'll satisfy all the conditions. Okay. All right. Last one I'm going to do on this worksheet is number 11. Let's look at that. It says, for the listed polynomial listed, confirm that all the zeros work through repeated synthetic division. So repeated synthetic division means take your answer from the previous one and then just factor that instead of starting over each time. So let me show you what I mean. So we have, on this one we have a 1, a 0, a -9, -4, and a 12. A lot of folks are going to forget to put a 0 there, and that's because I don't have an x cubed. So you need something as a placeholder, and that's why I put a 0 right there. Okay, so I tried -2 first, and it worked. I got a remainder of 0. Then on the next step, instead of doing the 1, 0, -9, -4, and 12 again, I'm going to use my answer from the previous step, and that's totally okay to do. So I use the 1, -2, -5, and 6. So this time I'm checking 0, or I'm sorry, 1 to make sure that works. Do all that, and you get a remainder of 0. So the last one, we take our answer from the previous step, and I'm going to test 3 now. So I do the 1, -1, and 6, test, 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 and you end up with a remainder of 0. So I just write what I have left over, which is the 1 and the 2, and that's really just 1x plus 2. So now what I have is I have the x plus 2 goes out front, and then I just write all the zeros that they gave me as factors. So the -2 that they gave me is the x plus 2, the 1 they gave me is x minus 1, and the 3 they gave me is x minus 3. So the entire thing is right here, and we were able to factor out that entire thing. Okay. So that is it for worksheet 5C. Like I said, really nothing too new on that. Maybe we didn't do repeated synthetic division before, but I think most of that was a repeat of 5B. So if you're struggling with these, contact me and I'll try and help you out, or just bring some questions to class. We do not have an exam this week, but we will have an exam next time I see you. So make sure you get all your confusion and questions cleared up before then. Okay? Have a lovely day, and I will see you soon.